All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm Zach Smith, co-chair of the SCA Programming Committee. On behalf of the SCA, I'm thrilled to welcome you to this evening's public program featuring the extraordinary artist, Jill Mulleady. Our 2025 SCA public programming, including tonight's lecture, is made possible through the generous support of Prada. Established in 1940 as a non-for-profit organization, the Society for Contemporary Art supports the Art Institute of Chicago by engaging the community in a dialogue about the art of our time and acquiring works that enrich the museum's collection. The SCA is a membership-supported organization open to everyone with a range of membership support levels, including artist, junior, friend, sponsor, patron, and benefactor memberships, all available on our website. We sincerely hope you will join us as members of the Society for Contemporary Art if you are not already. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to highlight a few upcoming SCA events. On Wednesday, December 10, members are invited to a holiday happy hour hosted at Seacrest Beach Gallery featuring an exhibition tour and a festive reception. Please also mark your calendars for our winter and spring public programming here in Fullerton Hall. Carol Dunham will speak and open his solo exhibition of drawings on Saturday, January 31st, 2026. Paulina Paboa, Chair and Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art at the Art Institute, will speak on Wednesday, February 11, 2026. And artist and writer Carolyn Lazard will present a special talk on their artistic practices on Wednesday, March 4, 2026. We have two very important events in late spring 2026. Please join us for the SCA benefit in Griffin Court at the Art Institute of Chicago on May 1st, 2026. This biannual fundraising event supports our mission to foster community and dialogue about the art of our time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And lastly, we look forward to seeing our members at the SCA annual meeting on Thursday, June 4th, 2026, when curators will present potential acquisitions, followed by a celebratory dinner at the museum. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Kate Neiser, Chair of the SCA Programming Committee, who will introduce our special guest, Jill Mulleady.
Thank you, Zach. Good evening and welcome to tonight's program featuring Jill Mulleady. Mulleady was born in Uruguay in 1980, raised in Argentina, and lives in Paris. But she's fresh from LA, where she's currently organizing the intergenerational exhibition, Horror. While the act of painting was always part of Mulleady's life, she studied theater extensively in Europe before earning an MFA in painting at Chelsea College of Arts in London. Theater and art history are critical to both Mulleady's process and the viewer's experience of her figurative work. Her canvases are like fever dreams in which sinister allegorical figures loom beyond the vision of her subjects, who seem suspended in time. Mulleady often intensifies the surrealistic effect by installing her paintings alongside architectural elements and ready-made objects. The result? Moving through the gallery, the viewer gets the freaky feeling of being a character on set of a drama with an unknowable script, a lot like life. Mulleady's work has been presented internationally with solo shows at institutions including Luma, Arles, Le Consortium in Dijon, the Swiss Institute in New York, and Kunsthal Bern. She participated in the 2020 edition of Made in LA and the 58th Venice Biennale. I'm thrilled to announce that next September, Mulleady will present a solo exhibition here at the Art Institute, organized by Gianpaolo Bianconi, Dittmer Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art. Tonight, Bianconi will address Mulleady about the role iconic paintings play in her practice. All right, here you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for coming, Jill. You're kind of busy right now. You're in the middle of installing this show. So thanks for coming out at such a busy moment. We have this slideshow that you're going to see behind us that Jill actually was kind enough to put together for us, and it intersperses her works with other works, all of which are from the museum. And we might refer to it a little bit, but we're not directly going to talk about each image kind of in that way. But I wanted to start maybe by asking you a question about your well, maybe in a more simple way. What's your relationship to modernism?
We said you were not going to ask that.
I don't remember that at all, Jill.
First, thank you for coming, and I'm very happy to be here. And it's true, I'm installing a show in Los Angeles at the moment that opens on Thursday. That is with 30 artists, and I'm curating it, so I have a lot to organize. But I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy actually and looking forward to the exhibition we're doing in September that I'm working through already because we planned this a year ago already. And so this slideshow that I made is really a little bit of a random moment that you see, but it's my work that has been inspired by the collection of the Art Institute as a coincidence, because it's such a great collection, and it's still happening that my last painting was inspired in a Toulouse-Lautrec, and this morning I realized that the Toulouse-Lautrec painting is in the collection. And so I added it. I was like, okay, this is like an endless inspiration. So modernism. I think we talk about this, like the idea of modernism in America is pretty different than the idea of modernism that I have, because I'm not American, I'm from Buenos Aires, but also I have a French education. So my modernism comes more from the idea of taking the things from the past and rethink them, give them, inject them life again. It's more about actually not creating a new language, but working with a language that exists itself. And I believe in destruction, and I believe in chaos, and I believe in the blank page and in the black window, and I believe in modernism as a moment in art history, but I would not take modernism as a whole thing to dictate me. So I take it as a moment in the whole art history.
So how does that sort of reveal itself? Like when you begin a painting, you've developed over the past 15 years or longer, we could say, a kind of style in your painting. And I'm wondering how you come to begin an image. How does that kind of start for you? What's the impetus for creating something?
It's a very natural process, and I have no specific rules, but it certainly comes from desire, and it gets triggered many times by the need of wanting to have an image in the world and to make that image. And it's almost like someone said that it's like you said that it was like a fever. It is a bit like a fever. It's an intensity, it's an urge. So I can't control it, actually.
But what are your rules?
My rules? My rule is actually like have the discipline to go to the studio every morning and be there. So, and then like I don't have I do paint on canvas, but I also love to paint on other materials like velvet or wood or glass. And I stick a lot to oil paint because that's the most, at the end of the day, is the most loyal material for me. And those are the rules. The rules are kind of about materials and formality, but then when I make a painting, I don't follow so many rules. Yeah.
But you've spoken a little bit about how images that already exist can inform what you're doing, and the distinction between the style that you work with and the content. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you approach those things as different in different ways.
Yes, for example, like we're looking at the slideshows, and I was thinking about doing a still life of apples, and I had no idea why, but I really wanted to make a still life of apples. So what I do is like I look at all the still lives of apples that have been done by Cézanne, or the one I was looking at was Courbet, actually. I saw the Courbet in the National Gallery in London. And then I made myself, so I composed this still life in my house with my apples, with my trade, and this one is painted on velvet. And the thing is, like, when I finished doing the painting, I realized why I did it, actually. And why I did it was because it was sort of a moment, an emotional moment that I had in my life that felt like the oppression, because there's some lemons in that still life, then they're underneath, and it was the oppression of the apples. And so somehow the content comes from these formal rules that I follow without knowing that unconsciously there's something that I want to tell as a storyteller at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, maybe other thing to talk about is that you have a very particular approach, I think, to narrative and narrativity. These things are often implied, but not entirely clear. What's the role that storytelling plays in your painting?
The storytelling. For me, it's something that comes before me, so it's the need to tell the story. It's like, why do we do this? And I think it's linked to be human and to want to keep the stories of our ancestors and our cultures and understanding and history. And it happens that I'm a painter, but I could do it with any other medium, like film, or if I would be a musician, but for sure I tried to be other things before, and I didn't have enough talent, I would say, then. So painting was actually something that was easy for me.
And what, your exhibitions often, this is a picture of an exhibition in Rome last year. Do you conceive of your exhibitions as a kind of whole unit or organism in a way? So I'm wondering if you can talk about how you negotiate between making one individual work and a kind of larger whole when you're thinking about exhibition making, or even in your approach to curating now in LA.
Yes, again, it's. I'm thinking it's a way that I want to create like my space, and I make these paintings that will play. Like, that's why I think I studied theater and I also studied film, but it was not because I wanted to do theater. It was because I wanted to understand actually how to create a space where I could make again like a story that would make. That's why I paint, because it's very hard to explain. But it's very much into putting things together and interact them. Like when I see my paintings isolated or on the internet or in a book, that's not what I wanted. I wanted them together in a space, in a show that they play together all, and there's a dialogue, there's a coherence, there's a title. Because when I finish one painting, I never feel that I finished, because I need to do the next one, because then the next one will talk to the other one, and it's a continuous. I really feel like everything is unfinished. And
we're looking at your paintings based on Tintoretto, and I find a lot of the times in your work the story that I see or some of the things that I see are quite violent and quite dark. I feel like you have this. Maybe not a kind of interest in things that are very dark and abject and hard to look at. Can you talk about that a little bit?
that's what I hear. I don't see it myself, but for example, like in the this one, for example, in this, I would say that yes, I was thinking, for example, when I was doing this painting, I was looking at Walter Sickert, that you have some works in the collection on paper, that the way how he painted these bodies was like very like methodical, and there was these nudes, and then he was suspected to be Jack the Ripper, and they found his DNA in one of the letters, and immediately I kind of was like, so there's some darkness in the way how I was attracted to that. So I guess that also reflects, and many times I'm thinking about death, actually, but not as an end, but as something that is completely unknown, and about uncertainty of things. And that's why I was talking about the unfinished. And it's not darkness, but it's something that we don't know, I would say. And that's why many people see some surrealism, but the surrealism is not, it's just the unconscious that also we don't know. And so I don't know how to define the darkness, but there's a lot of things that I'm interested in not knowing, actually.
Can you say, what do you mean by not knowing?
Well, I don't know. What about you?
I don't know. I don't know if I think about it as not knowing, but that would be a kind of different thing, I think. But I'm interested in the space of the unconscious that you talk about, because I feel like that's, you can think of the unconscious in a kind of narrative, figurative way, or in a material way, and I'm wondering what that unconscious space means for you when you try to enact it on the canvas.
I mean, that's I would say for me, it's like the black canvas is a black hole, actually, because when I start, I have a little bit of a vision, but I don't know where I'm going. So the amount of time that will take me to do that painting, I would be very open to receive information of what to do, and then I open myself to art history, and I look at images, and I go to museums, and I look at things, and I look at movies, and I also live intensively to get things from the street, from my friends, from reality. And then I try to make an image, actually, with all that.
I have the sense that for you, history is not, for some people, and you talked about pressure and claustrophobia in a way, but I sometimes feel like for you, history isn't necessarily a burden. It's a kind of comfortable space.
Yeah, it is a comfortable space. It's language for art history, painting history. It's for me, it's a source of language, actually, and that I understand. It's like I can read a language in many ways, and I can copy the language. And when I copy the language, it comes something different always, also.
Yeah, I mean, you can never repeat something.
Yeah.
Totally, right? It's like there's a newness there, but it's a kind of different sense of newness, I think, than the newness of modernism in some ways.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the painting I was saying that was inspiring the Toulouse-Lautrec. That is the last one I did.
Yeah.
And it's on velvet. When you see it on real, it's much more potent. But again, I mean, when I was doing this, I wasn't sure what I was doing. And then I realized that like a week after, my godmother died, and we were in this funeral, and it was exactly the same, that feeling in between life and death. And I was very very touched, or in an emotion to know that painting can reach many things that are invisible. And this is what I'm talking about, the unknown, the invisible.
And velvet, what attracted you to working on velvet? It's a challenging material materially, but also in its associations, black velvet, as a support.
What are the associations for you?
I don't know, like sort of like hippy dippy, kind of like, glow in the dark stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe other people have different associations. I don't know. But what interested you about it?
No, again, I was experimenting. I paint on glass also sometimes, and I paint on wood, and I buy different types of canvases. And then I went to this fabric shop with my daughter to buy her fabrics to sew, and I saw this beautiful purple velvet, and I was like, I'm going to try it. And once I tried it, I realized it was super easy somehow, that it would immediately give you, absorb the light in a different way, and be a little bit of a trompe-l'œil, where like it would reflect, it would absorb and reflect, and so yeah.
But it's the opposite of glass in a way, because glass has this transparency that lets the light shine through it, and then the velvet does the extreme, it's like the extreme far end of that.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, like, painting on glass is like ice skating. Is very...
What do you mean?
Like the way how the paint goes like this, very fast. And when you paint on velvet, it sticks, so it's more like walking on mud, painting on velvet or something, or walking on grass. But it's all these different, actually, it's trying different things. It's more in the difference in between one material to the other one that you actually can understand the gesture. We were talking about transparency, for example, and the opacity of the velvet makes you understand the transparency of the glass.
But how does the gesture figure into that?
The gesture?
Yeah.
Well, because on the velvet, for example, the gesture becomes a bit clumsy. And it doesn't flow so easy.
It resists.
It resists, yes.
Yeah. And I think part of your attraction to these sort of difficult images or things like that is kind of coming out in the work you're doing in LA now for the exhibition called Horror. What made you want to start thinking about horror as a topic for an exhibition?
Yeah, it's not that I'm not like fan of horror. I don't watch horror films. I mean, the idea started because I was thinking that horror started in films, with German expressionism, with films like Nosferatu and Dr. Caligari, and it was just before the rise of Nazis in Germany. And then realizing that now in America, like all the really good filmmakers that are not only Americans, but it happens in America, are related. Like the genre is actually very close to horror. It's these dark, like films that, like Jordan Peele or Ari Aster or what's his name, Yorgos. Jonathan Glazer. It's all filmmakers that are kind of creating a movement. And this doesn't happen in the art so much. The art is much more ruled by the market, and we don't really know what's going on. So I kind of thought like to bring that into art. So I kind of started with film as a base. So there's Dario Argento in the show because it's a filmmaker that really made the genre like very strong in Italy, and it's the way how actually every time these things were related to things that were happening in history, like radiation horror after the atomic bombs in Japan and the Cold War fear and all these alien movies that happened. And it was kind of like realizing that what was happening outside was triggering extreme fictions And then there were mesmerizing fictions for some reason that the audience would not know exactly why. And I liked the undirectness of it, because I don't get, as a viewer, I don't get so interested when the answer is direct and it's correct, and we're telling me what to see, how to digest it, and why I should take this position. So I like when things are a bit more complicated for the viewer. So because that triggers not a morality, but actually a sense of compassion of humanity itself. And doesn't put you in the right or the wrong place, but actually in like, okay, we're all humans and we all can do horrible things.
And you might not know. It's a place where there's not a lot of certainty.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if you can talk about it now. Did you like working as a curator?
Well, this is the first time that I do, but yes, I did enjoy it a lot. It's a very different situation. I am an artist also in the show, and I'm happy, but I'm also happy to work with my generation of artists, younger generations, and older generations, and also dead artists, and the state of and it's always a different experience, but I like mostly to create conversations in between all those generations. And there's certainly like not a feeling of competition, which sometimes it feels annoying actually nowadays, but more like of a force group.
Mm-hmm. And you said there's 30 artists in the show?
Who?
There are 30 artists in the show?
31.
31.
Yeah.
That's a big show.
Yeah, it's a big show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you approach it differently from how did you approach installing a show with other people's work in it versus how you approach installing kind of a show of your own work?
It was much more exciting than installing my own work, I have to say. I got more of the intuition was very clear. I would know exactly yes, no, why, and how, and it was more like a big puzzle. To install my own work in the show was also like a challenge, because I didn't want to be at the center at all, and I also didn't want to put myself on the side on purpose. So it needed to be in the right place just because it was part of a puzzle. But I think it's okay. The show is up, and the artists are, for the moment, are okay with it.
Great. That's a curatorial feeling. Yeah. I want to go back to cinema that you talked about, and I think cinema is something that's very important to you. But I'm wondering how you negotiate these two very different mediums, the medium of film and projected light and that kind of image making, and the medium of painting and the kind of history that holds and your interest in that. How do those things influence each other for you?
Again, I think it's because of the strong storytelling thing that I have in myself, and some this sort of search of some kind of truth in things that is very hard to find. And in films, it's such a contemporary medium, actually, film, that if you think about painting, it's been there forever. And the way how we were just at the collection and we look at Fontaine-Latour, this still life that is there's nothing that it's got that painting in a way, you don't have that with a film. So it's a totally different medium, But so maybe I'm not fully a painter, because I will not spend 1 year making one painting that looks like a Fontaine-Latour nowadays. I'm looking for something else because of postmodernism and the history we're living. And that's why I feel like now things are more unfinished. And if someone can tell me one painter that looks like Fontaine-Latour nowadays or in the last 50 years, it's impossible. And I wonder why. It's because things changed, and we have new mediums and photography and cinema and music and the way how digital era that really transformed the way how we do things. And I'm part of that conversation, I guess.
Does that relate formally to any of the techniques that you use in your painting? I've always been very struck by some of your works in which the paint is applied very thinly to the canvas. I think it's something that happens in this painting, just kind of by coincidence. But have those techniques for you developed in response to any of the things that you're talking about?
This is like, I don't know, it comes naturally. It's like my voice, like I have this voice and I don't have this voice. So it's really my voice, like the way how I paint. And I like when I see paintings, I like that I like to see the gesture, and I don't like when they're overworked. And as a viewer, I don't want to see, like this one, for example, it has many layers. It's not that I paint thin, it's just lots of thin layers. So it doesn't become too heavy. And it looks easy, actually, even if it's not that easy.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not that easy. But sometimes it also relates, I think, to this idea of transparency that you were talking about earlier, the idea of like looking through something. And I sometimes have the feeling that your paintings are designed to be looked through, maybe even more than they're designed to be looked at.
Interesting.
Does that resonate for you at all?
Yes. I mean, I think it's... I hope that... and I don't know why I had this image, like, for example, thinking about Hitchcock, like when you look at these scenes where like there's a glass of milk, and you look at that and you don't see a glass of milk. You look and you see that something is going to happen, and it's suspense, actually. And as to create that suspense, you can't fake it somehow. It has to come from a need to say something. There's something that actually something is going to happen. So that's the truth that I'm like saying that, and something's going to happen because we go out on the street and things happen. It is the reality. So it's more about being alive, to make a painting that is dead but it's still alive.
What do you mean? Like, I'm curious about this idea of activity or premonition that's embedded in the painting. Is there something that you want to happen, or you want to reveal something that's about to happen?
Both, I guess, or that already happened, or it's happening. I think painting is very much of it captures the energy of the painter, of what the painter is thinking, the energy, the movement, the emotions. You see it when you look at, we were talking about Soutine painting. It has so many emotions, or Munch, and you don't know why. And then you see other paintings that they look beautiful, but they're dead somehow. And why? It's not formal. It's really not formal. You see, or when we see de Kooning, why de Kooning is moving you that much, or Joan Mitchell. I think it really has the capacity more than anything to capture life. And this is the challenge that we have today, when we are like really, really at the borders of being devoured by artificial intelligence. And what makes the difference, and why we want to see things that are still real if we could have them fake. So what's the trigger on you when you see a beautiful painting, or when you look at Bacon, and why do you feel that way?
Do you think of the paintings as like, it sounds, I'm going to get into like the spiritual a little bit here, but do you think of them as like holders of of that energy or something, like a capsule or something?
Sure, totally. It's like the torch of life. Like, look at this painting. Oh my God, I saw this painting today in the collection, and I was like, it's so perfect. The way how the yellow comes in the hands, and you don't know why, but I mean, it's not something that can be created artificially. It's the imperfections or the emotions.
And what are some of I think there's a lot of different sort of themes in the paintings we've been looking at, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of the themes that you return to most regularly in your paintings. I feel like this theme of riot or confrontation or violence is one, and there are themes of vulnerability and loneliness and exclusion are others, but I'm wondering if you can talk about some of the thematics that you feel like you go back to the most when you're making these works.
These are works I made like a long time ago, but still I made a very similar one lately that it's going to come after. And mostly I was interested in the way how when bodies get together and they try to find some sort of harmony in the chaos of pulling them being like against each other, and this is the way also, like I was looking at this Delacroix also, like the way how when bodies are together really creates, it's so sensual somehow. Oh, this one I was the explosion that I did recently in my studio, and it's really like this moment where all these bodies are exploding, and somehow it's like a group energy that creates from the chaos of the bodies. Yeah.
How are you doing? Good. Good. Yeah. Can I ask you something?
Sorry?
Can I ask you something? Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to ask me?
Yes, I could ask you. Oh, yes.
You don't have to.
No, I would like to ask you actually, because I was very moved the first time you came to my studio, because it was in Los Angeles, and I was by coincidence working on the collection for the show I was doing at the Schinkel, and you're someone that I really admire, the way how you look at contemporary art, because we actually have a similar like way of navigating things, where like we don't like the expected things. And I was wondering, because we were talking about painting that is such a thin line, and there's so much painting around actually, that curators actually are afraid to painting shows, because there's so much, and you had the courage to actually find something in my paintings that was completely a risk also, because painting is a risk. And I wonder where is the risk for you, like in this sense?
Well, that's very flattering. I mean, I don't want to talk about myself here, but I think the thing that's been kind of most interesting to me about your work in some ways is this, I think that and it was kind of part of why I wanted to ask you that question in the beginning, is I think that we think of modernism as this great kind of earthquake that changed how we approach everything, from a water bottle and a teapot to painting and politics and everything like that. But I wonder sometimes lately if modernism wasn't kind of an aberration. And if you look at most of the paintings on view in this institution or any other institution you go to, you're not really going to see the shock of the new that often. You're going to see instead people who have been making variations on things for a long time. And you're going to see people that have been making new versions of things that have existed for quite a long time. And that is where history or change or movement or spirit, whatever you want to call it, kind of happens. And I feel like that was something that I began to think about through thinking about your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But there are also risks for you. I mean, part of, when you started making painting, was making figurative narrative painting, that was a risk in a lot of ways, and it still is.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning it was a disaster.
What do you mean?
Like when I was studying, when I actually decided to finally study art after I studied 1 million things before, and I was doing figurative paintings in Chelsea College in 2006, 2007. That was just when the YBA were blooming. And the teachers were like, can you stop painting? So I did sculpture for a year. And then it was okay, my sculpture presentation by the end of the year. People were like, oh, it's kind of funny. And then next year I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to painting. And they were like, why? And I did it. And by the end of the year, like, everyone looked at my show and they were like, kind of like, okay, goodbye. Like, I failed, I have to say. And I kept doing it. But it was not, there was always a risk. That actually helped me because today, if I do something, I don't care if I'm going to be liked or not, because it didn't start. I mean, at the beginning, yes, it was kind of like, oh, you know how to paint, you know how to draw. But then when it got serious at a certain point at art school, it was difficult. So the risk for me comes from actually not waiting for validation, because the validation changes anyway.
And there is a lot of, I think there are passages of tremendous abstraction in your paintings. They just reveal themselves in different ways or kind of in different places. How do you think about that kind of when you're making a painting? Do you get excited about the places where you can maybe create some abstraction or mess?
Actually, after school, I also painted abstract for 4 years. I broke my right arm doing arm wrestling in a pub. And I won like 5 guys and then lost and broke my arm. And then I started painting with my left arm, and I started painting abstract, and that was a moment. But then one day, after I had my daughter, and I was in a very much of a domestic life, I started painting dishwashers and sinks and toilets, and that's how like the figuration came back. And it was something that was kind of my language. Yeah, it was very natural.
I'm wondering if we want to take any questions from the audience, maybe.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you very much for this interview. And I thought it was very interesting what you said about velvet. And my opinion of velvet is a bit different. I think of a luxurious, even royal material, heavy. And I think about theater. So I don't know if there's a link about the fact that you studied also theater. I think about how the seats and the curtains of the theater are in velvet. And I would love if you can talk a little bit more about it, because at first you said it was you love the velvet and it was easy for you to paint on it. And then after you talk about the resistance that you have painting on it. So I would love to know what are the advantages and the inconvenience for you using this material.
Well, first is a material that also you're not supposed to do it because I think the oil eats the velvet, so I don't know how it's gonna live on the long term. But I think it's mainly it's not only when I paint on it, but it's also when it's done the way how it reflects the light. It absorbs, actually, it doesn't reflect it. So it lets the painting, the oil, exist in this surface that is actually absorbing the light. So normally when you do it on a white canvas, the white canvas reflects the light, but the velvet doesn't, especially because I'm doing in dark velvet. And it actually, there's something about how you say of glow in the dark. So the oil comes out in a way, so it makes something in the eye that is actually, for the viewer, it's very seductive, I guess. And then the experience as a painter to paint on it, it's more, it's nice because it's kind of like more of a texture, actually. It's not flat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I thought it was really interesting when you were talking about the show you're curating and the topic of horror, because I think people really can oversimplify it and can kind of think of like the cliched horror movie, slasher, whatever. And I thought it was interesting when you were talking more about how, there was radiation horror, and then, after the Cold War, there was that expansion into aliens or other themes of horror that were interlinked to what was going on in society at that time, or ideas of fear at that particular time. So as you're curating this current show and you're thinking about the modern or the current definition of horror, what do you think the theme of that is right now? Or how would you kind of summarize that? Or what bucket would you categorize that in? Because I'm kind of thinking what would the subgenre of the moment be? Or the modern equivalent? And I just thought that idea was kind of interesting, and I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an very interesting question, and this is also why I'm doing the show, to figure out, to think about this, and to make the viewer think about it, because things are not fixed, so I could not say that is one thing or the other one, but surely, especially in America, I mean, I don't even need to say it, we know, but the way how actually in films you see it, there's a lot of fear of fake news. So fear of being absorbed by artificial intelligence, fear about surveillance, authoritarian illness, COVID, all these things, I mean, that have always been there. And that's why I was interested to do it since the start of horror during the rise of the Nazis, and to continue, because there's Japanese artists like Tatsumi Kuro that actually thinks about radiation horror, and there's lots of works from Mike Kelly that also talks about repression and also indoctrination and all that. So it's themes that they repeat. I don't think there's anything new. The only new thing is artificial intelligence, I guess, and driverless cars and all that.
Yes. You've grown up and lived in some very different cultures, right? South America, you studied in London, Paris, worked in LA. Do you feel like your certain paintings are very specifically from one culture or reflect one sort of language, if you will, or are they a blend? Are they not distinct in that way for you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in different places, it's true, but I also have lots of different origins myself. So I have like 16 different types of origins. 16, it's a lot. And so I think all that is on my DNA somehow, on my culture, and today also we live in a moment where like things are more accessible culturally too. But I don't know, this is more something that, of course, I love certain periods of painting more than others, and but I also love this. I love American painting. I also love German painting, and I love French, Italian. There's a lot of things that I'm not also, because I'm not American, for example. I don't know if that answers.
But I feel like if I can, like, the combination between your two questions is kind of a question about genre. And genre is something that in Hollywood or in music, it's very common to move between genres and kind of know what the parameters are. And you also move between different genres in your painting. Like you make kinds of paintings in a way. Yeah. Does that feel like close to what you're doing?
Yes, and I mean, I'm going back to films, but for example, my favorite filmmaker is Kubrick, and he was moving in between genres. And I think if you have the ability to actually not attach to a style, it means that something is bigger inside, like, and you're not, it's, so I'm not attached to a style, I guess. No.
Any other questions? We have time for one or two more, maybe.
Oh, can I go?
Hi. Going back to some of the materiality and how you were saying in shows where you're showing your own work, you want them to be in conversation with one another. I'm wondering, when you're coming up with new works and you're going between velvet, linen, canvas, does the material of the canvas you're painting on interact with that conversation? And if so, could you explain a little?
Yes, definitely. I think the material is so important. It's the part that makes the thing real. And for example, I love doing prints and woodcuts, and like woodcut prints are like, they come from pieces of wood that I have to engrave and then I have to print. And when we were looking today at the collection, and I see the Munch woodcuts, they're totally different from the lithographies or the paintings. And of course, everything is affected. It's like when you have for breakfast muesli, it's not the same thing when you have a toast or yogurt. It's really the materiality that makes it so special and contemporary and alive.
I wanted to ask, is it more important for you, the references of your paintings? Is it about, like, how much do you care that the viewer knows the history? Like, it's great we have this slideshow here, but like, how would you feel if someone today, you know, liked a lot of your new paintings and they felt moved by it, but then they didn't know about the inspiring painting? Like, do you hope that they will go study these past works you're referencing, or you're just kind of like, it's enough if they feel it?
No, I mean, honestly, like, it's really like not important, the reference. Like, for example, now we were joking because I put the Picasso blue guitarist as a reference to this one, which is not at all actually. And many times it happens that people are like, "Oh, I see that this is your reference." I'm like, "Not at all." And that's part of the thing, that actually, if it feels familiar somehow, it's gonna make the thing, because then it's a little bit uncanny because it's familiar, but it's not the same thing. So it's really not important not to have the right reference. Actually, the best is actually to give the wrong clue somehow.
Oh, hi, I had a question. Earlier you had mentioned in your figurative paintings that there's this sort of group energy that comes when you put all of these different bodies together, but also within those moments of chaos, there are moments of harmony. And I was wondering how you personally either identify or produce those moments of harmony, and how you decide that in your paintings, or if they come naturally after you've made them.
Yeah, it comes after I make them. I guess it's almost like a choreography. I wonder, it's like when you look at a choreography of a ballet, you're like, what's? It's very hard to explain why people are dancing. I don't understand why people dance, And for me, it's the same when I paint. For me, like doing this it's like dancing somehow. And there's ways of doing it in one way or in another one, and the fights somehow make it, when it's a fight, it just connects it to something that it's real, that it's out there, and that it's part of life experience. Meanwhile, many times a choreography could feel like artificial. For example, if I paint a choreography, it's not going to be so interesting as if I'm painting a fight, I guess, because you have the violence in the fight. And that's
sometimes
another topic.
Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, yeah.
I think we might have time for one last question, if anybody has one. Oh yeah, there's one right here. This is going to be the last question.
Thank you both so much for a great conversation. I was wondering, Jill, if you could talk a bit about your sculpture. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that you sort of source imagery for your paintings, also like you source imagery for your sculptures. And I feel like we've been talking a little bit about your choices with velvet and glass and canvas, but how do you approach making sculptures as opposed to turning some sourced imagery into a narrative painting of yours?
So there was one sculpture that was going around. Oh yeah. So this was actually this is in the collection, the Young Roman of Camille Claudel, and I love the fact that she painted on plaster as to make a fake, what is it, like marble, like as they did in the Roman times. And so she, at her time, that was kind of old for us. She was trying to be older than her times. And so I did this sculpture that is very hard to see, but it's, yeah, that's better maybe. So I painted it with wax, so layers and layers and layers of wax to make this fake, trying to do this also, this fake Roman marble. And I don't know, I think this one, it also came from this, the hermaphrodite. It's like an hermaphrodite, and the idea of the impossibility of unity in one body, and sculpture is very hard for me to talk about. I mean, painting, but painting I can, but sculpture is like, it's still not there.
Well, sometimes it's good to have a little bit of the unknown. But maybe we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so much, Jill. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for coming.